I'm Carlos with Casas Roofing, and here at this project we're doing today, we're doing a lift and relay. So basically what that means is we're reusing the tile. We're changing all the underlayment. As you can see here, the first couple of days a little bit messy because we're throwing away the old underlayment. That's one of the things that we do differently than a lot of other roofers is they'll basically just cover the old underlayment, which I mean saves them time, right? But what happens a lot of times there is that if there's any bad areas of wood, they get disguised, obviously, right? They just cover them up. So we always make sure we take off the old underlayment, and then we install 2 layers of new underlayment, right? And then we restack the existing tile, and then we're able to reuse it. This is the exact paper we use. So this roll will cover about 2 squares, and we basically install 2 layers of this. So the first layer, the guys will cut it in half and they'll lay it on the edge, and then they lay a complete roll, and then from there, traditionally, like if it were a shingle roof, we overlap it on these lines only. But in this scenario, since it's a tile roof, they're gonna overlap it almost halfway. That way it basically creates a double layer of underlayment. Because what happens is over time, a lot of times when we see the leaks, there's an old tile here. This area here, where the headlap is, right? This sits on the underlayment. So after 10-15 years of a little bit of shifting with the wind and whatnot, it'll basically start to wear into the paper. That's why we install a double layer to make sure that it's gonna last. And then over here, what we have is a bird stop metal. So this is a key component to any tile roof because it's gonna stop any animals, birds from nesting underneath your tile, right? Because this is gonna cover the edge of the roof, and then these holes are basically weep holes. So if there's any water that makes its way underneath the tile, it's gonna basically drain through those holes. And as you can see here, the job is in basically the mid stages right now. We already stacked all the old tile. We put on new paper. As you can see here, we have a bunch of 1x boards that usually on the perimeter. We're gonna find a lot of these rotted 1x boards. So for this particular homeowner, we're painting it for them. And this would be the fascia board, right? Which we already changed a bunch of this fascia here in the front. As you can see here, this entire fascia here, we changed out. And then we added a drip edge metal. And this house was like that right before we installed the new metal. It didn't have this drip edge metal. That's why we're changing a lot of the fascia realistically, because this fascia was not protected as it should be by the drip edge. These are basically made to fit exactly onto the type of tile you're installing. So that's where it's crucial to know, what exact metals you need. And yeah, other than that, we also install a brand new valley metal. Basically any valleys, it's gonna get a brand new metal as well, because that's another crucial area. Another thing we see a lot in these homes, the early 2000s, is in the valleys, like I mentioned. So a valley is gonna be anytime the roof meets, right? The roof meets and creates a valley. And so all the water flows there and then it goes off of the roof. They're basically completely closed, which is not, a lot of people think, hey, well that's the right way, that way it's not exposing the roof. But in theory or by code, we're supposed to leave at least 2 inches on each side of an opening. And the reason is because the debris and just dirt alone will start to accumulate in those valleys. So if there's not a wide enough gap, then it basically creates a dam. With the debris, it creates a dam and the water starts dispersing out to the side. So that's why we always make sure that when we install the tile, a lot of times we have to cut the valleys. We're lifting in relaying. We have the tile pieces already basically placed as they're gonna go back on, but when we reinstall it, we cut it 2 inches on each side just to make sure that they're not gonna have no issues or damming. So what we have here is an example of some broken tiles. These tiles at one point were glued, right, or sealed by either, a lot of times it could be a Christmas light guy, it could be a painter, or any type of foot traffic, right? Or solar panels maybe being cleaned, because this specific home did have solar panels that we brought down. So since we're doing a lift and a relay and reusing the existing concrete tile, we always make sure that any cracked tiles that we replace. We're not gonna go back on with, you know, any cracked tiles, obviously broken ones, or sealed tiles. So we bring extra tiles, right? So at the very end, we're gonna make sure that the last guys off the roof, if they, you know, if any tiles are broken, especially since they're being reused and they basically have been baking in the sun for, you know, several decades, they're a little bit more brittle than a newer tile, right? So we need to be careful, you know, consider that, and replace any broken tiles. So on top of that, what we're gonna do for this homeowner is these tiles have certain areas that have a lot of algae. So we're gonna power wash the entire roof for them, and we're all done. Since we're reusing the tile, then that way it's gonna give it a new appearance, right? But we're also recycling, reusing the good tile.
Yeah.
So I'll just text you with any updates, try not to bother you, but we will be working Saturday. We'll start a little bit later to not take off the neighbors.